Let's learn about sudden infant death syndrome and how to prevent it next on the Delphin Law Info Show. Hello, everyone. I'm attorney Mark Delphin with the Delphin Personal Injury Law Firm headquartered in Lake Charles, Louisiana. My special guests today include Ms. Michelle McInnes and Mr. Charlie Hunter, both of whom are members of the Southwest Louisiana Safe Sleep Task Force. Let's start with you, Ms. Michelle, and thank you both for being here. Ms. Michelle, share with us, please, what we need to know about sudden infant death syndrome.
Thank you, Mark. Sudden infant death syndrome is something that happens to infants while they're sleeping. We don't know what causes it. A true SIDS case is something that requires a lot of in-depth investigation. But we know that if we can eliminate or reduce the risks that are associated with SIDS, then we can save babies' lives.
So how do we reduce that risk, Miss Michelle? Let's just get into it right now.
Sure. Infants that are well sleep best and safest on their back in a clean, uncluttered crib in their own room and alone. Infants should sleep alone on their backs in a crib. A lot of times, parents will think that they're safest sleeping with them in their adult beds, but the deaths that we see in the Safe Sleep Task Force are typically caused by some type of suffocation, either a layover with the parent blocking the infant's breathing, or actually rolling over on top, or the infant's getting suffocated by the adult bed, pillows, blankets, things like that. So we don't recommend anything in the crib with the infants, no bumper pads, no toys, no blankets. And we follow the American Academy of Pediatrics and their guidelines, which says that the ABCs of safe sleep are alone on their backs and in a crib.
And one of the other things I understand, Miss Michelle, you want a firm mattress for a child. You don't want a fluffy mattress where they can roll over and bury their nose in it. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, Mr. Hunter, you worked for the Calcasieu DA's office, the Calcasieu coroner's office for many years, and you shared with me a statistic that in Southwest Louisiana, there are more infant deaths from SIDS than there's murders.
Well, you're right in a sense, Mark. It's not necessarily deaths related to strictly SIDS. But yes, there have been many years in the past where infant deaths per year have actually surpassed the number of homicides listed for the calendar year. It's just one of those things that doesn't get the attention, the flashiness of the news releases and everything else, because it's such a touchy subject and not such a public thing such as a homicide. But there have been many years in the past where infant deaths in total have surpassed that number of homicides. But I think it's important to understand these are not just deaths associated with SIDS or sudden infant death syndrome. It is a combination of those deaths as well as deaths which occur from an unsafe sleeping environment. That is actually the number one leading cause of infant deaths in Southwest Louisiana and across the country, is deaths that are related to unsafe or improper sleeping environments.
Now, Ms. McInnes had given us some of her information regarding what constitutes an unsafe area. Is there anything else that you would like to add to that, Mr. Hunter, based on your experience?
You know, it is very, very common for parents to sleep in the same bed as their children and practice what's called co-sleeping. Unfortunately, it is a very, very dangerous. It's a very dangerous situation for an infant, and a large majority of infant deaths that I personally have investigated, as well as across the country, occur from an infant who has been able to maintain the air exchange necessary for breathing and for life while sleeping with an individual, because a portion of an adult has been placed on top of the infant or blocking the airway of the infant, or additionally, if not by an individual with an improper sleeping environment, such as additional blankets and pillows, it again reduces that airway and the airflow, and could potentially cause a fatal situation just by all those additional objects and soft bedding and materials being placed in the crib with the infant.
But Mr. Hunter, could I ask you to please to just think of one investigation that you went on, and what was it like going to the home of a child who had recently died? I mean, that's got to be a devastating experience.
Well, Mark, honestly, it is the most difficult type of case that a death investigator has to investigate. Unfortunately, in my career, I've done far too many of those and had to sit in. I tell everybody I've sat in the living room of so many parents and met some of the nicest people in the world during some of the worst circumstances. And it is not an easy thing. And we spend so many hours. It's very complex and intricate what's involved in an infant death investigation, the amount of hours that are required and the forms that we fill out and everything that we do to determine exactly, get the information to the doctor to determine exactly how the infant died. It's a lot. And to give you an example, just so you understand and the public understands, is upon the death of an infant, the death investigator and law enforcement will respond to the scene. A lot of times while the infant has been pronounced deceased in the same house, and we have to conduct our scene investigation there. We fill out what's called the sudden or unexplained infant death reporting form, which is about 12 pages, covering the infant's medical history, the mother's medical history, the scene circumstances, all of those different things. That's all done immediately, fresh after the 911 call when we respond to the scene. And additionally, and by far the hardest, most difficult part of this is what's called the doll reenactments. We all carry infant baby dolls in our vehicles, and we actually do a reenactment with the parent, grandparent, caregiver, babysitter, whomever is in charge of the care of the child at the time of death. And we do a doll reenactment. So a lot of times that involves getting right back in the same bed or on the same sofa, and we reenact these events with the caregiver. And the most devastating part for us, and part of the reason this task force was formed, is because so many times we get that response from the parent or caregiver of, "Oh my gosh, my baby suffocated," and it's evident to them, and they can see it clearly with the doll. And obviously, us as the investigators, we see clearly exactly what happened as well. And I think that's the most difficult part is walking them through that. As tragic and as sad as that is, that it's simply an accident. Those parents don't know how quick and how easy things can happen. And to be able to sit there in their house or their living room with them and to answer these questions fresh after they found their child and to do the doll reenactment, it's extremely tough. But I think, as we talked about before we went on air, it's one of the biggest reasons why the task force exists and we do all that we do to prevent this from ever happening again.
So tell us about the task force, Ms. McInnes. We know why it exists, to try to prevent these tragedies. So, but just tell us who you all are and what do y'all do?
Sure. Not a lot of people know that the state has what we call the Child Death Review Committee. And anytime there's an infant death, as Charlie says, there's an investigation, and all the paperwork and all the case material comes to this committee, and we review it to see if there's anything the community could do to help prevent these deaths. And back in 2007, I was at one of these Child Death Review Committee meetings, and we were actually looking at 9 cases of infant death, and all of them had been an unsafe sleep environment death that we felt probably could have been prevented in our community had there been some type of education on what a safe sleep environment looks like. So we gathered information and done some research, and we found an upcoming annual conference that was being held in Pittsburgh called the Cribs for Kids program. And so I went and attended that conference and brought that information back to this committee, and the Safe Sleep Task Force was formed at that time. And so we trained a couple of trainers and started holding classes locally for caregivers, for nursing students, for doctors, anyone who would actually listen to us. We started training them, and we would take pictures and we would show them what a safe sleep environment looked like, what the guidelines are to help reduce these risks. And it's grown from there. Then about in 2009 or so, we started looking for ways to help share the word and raise some funds so that we could actually provide a safe sleep environment for families who couldn't afford a place for their infants to sleep safely. So we came up with the stroll and roll idea, and was approached by a local couple who had actually lost their infant son to unsafe sleep while the baby was in the care of a babysitter. His name is Caden Reed, and we still honor him and memorialize him with our stroll and roll each year. But he was in the care of a sitter, and the sitter put him down to sleep in an adult bed, and he rolled over and was suffocated against the wall while at this sitter's office, at this sitter's home. And so his parents, Erica and Eric Reed, wanted to help our community learn about these unsafe sleep environments, and join forces with the task force to hold the stroll and roll in memory of Caden each year. And so we've had it. This will be our 9th year that we will hold it, and it's to again raise funds so that we can provide cribs, but it's more importantly to bring attention, as you are today, thank you, to what a safe sleep environment means to the community and how we can help prevent these deaths. The task force also holds monthly classes for caregivers and parents. We train our local hospitals so that they are certified on these safe sleep guidelines. We can do one-on-one classes if the hospital calls and says that they have a family that will be leaving the hospital and they have no place for their infant to sleep. We can go to the hospital and provide the education on site. We can go to their homes. We have, we hadn't talked about the Cops and Cribs program, where we've trained all the deputies, all the firefighters, EMTs on the safe sleep message. They can, if they're on a call and they see an infant, they are trained to ask where the baby sleeps. Can we see the sleep environment of the infant? And they can do the education for the families at that immediate time. And if they don't have a place for that baby to sleep safely, they are trained to provide a crib. They have cribs on in storage, or they can call us and we can provide those cribs to them immediately, so those infants do not have to spend another night in these unsafe sleep conditions.
So, Mr. Carter, if I could just ask you for some statistics. I understand that you all would recommend that a child should never be placed on their stomach to sleep. Is that true?
That's correct. We recommend that all children sleep on their back at all times when they go to sleep.
And in talking to you yesterday and getting prepared for the show, you had shared with me that if a child sleeps on her back and then she is turned to sleep on her stomach, such as by a babysitter or a grandparent who doesn't know, that child has an 18 times greater risk of dying from SIDS than a child regularly sleeping on her back.
That's true. It's very important for an infant as they develop to have consistency. Obviously, as we've learned in the brief show, that the safest thing to do is the simple ABCs of safe sleep. Place them alone, place them on their back, in a crib on that firm mattress, like you talked about, with only a tight fit sheet on the mattress, and to start that process every single time. Number one, it's the safest way for them to sleep on their back. And you want to do that every time. And by you setting that tone as a parent or a caregiver, you know, it needs to go away from home. It's so important for family members to let daycares and grandparents know, hey, my child sleeps on their back every night, every nap. This is what we focus on. And the infant becomes accustomed to that. And if you get them out of that routine, it can increase your risk factors for SIDS.
You know, because I can see where, parents may be vigilant. They know to make sure that there's no clutter and no blankets around and that the child should sleep on his back. But if you have a teenage babysitter and if you don't educate that babysitter or even a well-wishing grandparent, if that parent is not educated and put that child on her tummy, then that could be a major disaster.
Mark, you said it perfectly. You mentioned grandparents, you mentioned babysitters. Both of those are so important in this entire process. And that's why the task force doesn't just focus on new and expectant parents. We want you to bring grandparents. We want you to bring your babysitters. We work very hard with teaching those individuals who teach babysitting classes. They teach the basics. They teach CPR. They teach first aid. It's very important for us to get in there with safe sleep as well, especially with grandparents. Things have changed so much over the years. From prior to 1994, they used to tell you to put your child on their stomach to sleep. After 94, they tell you, okay, now put them on your back to sleep. So many parents who've had children, grandparents especially, who had children before that time frame, well, this is the way we did it. Our kids were on their stomach and they grew up and they're perfectly fine. So that's what we're going to do. And just like anything else, the information out there, the technology, the education is so much better, and that's why the American Academy of Pediatrics recommend now back sleeping. So it's important that we as a task force don't focus just on parents, but we do reach out to those grandparent groups, the aunts and uncles, the babysitters, because care away from your home should continue the way you're doing it, and to make sure that those individuals, number one, understand your wishes, but why you want your child to sleep on their back and what's the importance of it.
So let me ask you guys about the baby bouncers that are real popular nowadays. You can put your infant in it. It's at about a 45-degree angle, and you can bounce them to sleep. Is it safe for those infants to sleep kind of like at a 45-degree angle if they're on their back, as long as their neck is not turned inward? Is that pretty safe?
Unless we do not recommend anything like that for sleeping. Even a car seat, while we know infants do fall asleep in a car seat while they're, traveling, it is not the safest place for them to sleep. So we do recommend that when you get to your destination, or once the baby falls asleep in a swing or a bouncer, that they are placed in a safe crib, a firm mattress, flat on their back. That's the best way for them to sleep. So no, we do not recommend them sleeping.
And the reason, if their chin is at their chest, you're constricting that throat and interfering with their airflow.
That's correct.
I didn't know about the bouncer. Thank you so much for telling us. We're going to have to do something about that bouncer as soon as I get back home.
Yes, a lot of baby items claim that they are for sleeping, and that they're just not safe. They're not designed to sleep. That's why we always stick to our flat surface, our firm mattresses, and a crib. Now, a crib could be a full-size baby bed, but we use portable pack-and-plays, so they fold up. They can go with you everywhere you go. You can take them to grandma's house. You can take them to a babysitter's house, a hotel. If you're staying at a hotel, it's small enough to fit in the room, small enough to fold up and fit in your car. Another point that I would like to make is where your baby stays. If, let's say, at a daycare, daycares that are licensed must follow the Safe Sleep guidelines. They have to have it in their policy, and parents can demand to see the written policy and demand to know which daycares are workers are trained on the safe sleep, and that they are required to sleep your baby on their back in their own cribs at all times. So parents who use daycares should actually ask about that policy as well.
So let me see if I can recite a couple of do's and don'ts based upon what you all have told us today. Do put your child sleeping on her back in a firm mattress with tightly fitting sheets. That's okay. Do not sleep with your child. Do not put your child in an adult fluffy tight bed with comforters. Um, do not put stuffed animals and bumper pads. Do not allow your child to sleep on a couch or recliner. What,
Correct.
what are some of the other don'ts that I didn't mention? Because this is just so important. I just want to make sure everybody got it.
Sure, there's some more risk factors. Smoking is definitely a risk factor. So not only smoking in the presence of a child, but also if your clothes has smoke on it, when the infant comes up on your shoulder, that smoke is being inhaled in. So just even if you lay them down on something to change their diapers that has been exposed to smoke, that is all contributing to those risk factors. So you want to keep the infant free of a smoke-free environment.
And Mr. Charlie Hunter, if I could ask you, I imagine that SIDS is prevalent across all demographics, not just the middle class, but the upper class and the poor folks too, huh? You've been in all sorts of situations over your time.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the things that is a lot of that misconception. People tend to think that it happens to, the poor and not the rich, or this race or that race. And unfortunately, SIDS knows no boundaries. It happens to all races, all religions, all financial statuses. It's so important because those risk factors are those risk factors for any babies. And it doesn't matter what type of background or where you live, or what religion or race or ethnicity you are, those factors remain the same. And if we all practice those safe sleep, the SIDS risk factors, we all reduce them. And all infants of all backgrounds and all, and every gender or race, we can reduce them just by following the same guidelines set forth.
So, Miss Michelle, you had mentioned earlier the Cops and Cribs program. Is there anything else that you'd like to educate us on about that?
Sure. So if you see, they're all trained in the safe sleep. So if you are in a situation and you can't get in touch with one of us, and you see a law enforcement agency or a fire department agency, you can contact them, and they all know how to get in touch with us as well.
Okay, and just to remind everyone, if you would like to get in touch with the Safe Sleep Task Force, you can reach out to them by calling 337-508-2286, 508-2286, or you can email them SWLA Safe Sleep Task Force at gmail.com. Miss Michelle, what is a pack and play portable crib?
It's a small, like, back in the day we had playpens, but it's a small portable crib that folds up and comes with a nice little cover case that you can carry around and keep it clean and keep it safe. You can take it to your sitters. You can take it to hotels. You can move it from the kitchen to the living room. And then at night, you can roll it next to your adult bed, and the baby has its own safe sleep environment, and you have your nice adult comfy bed. But it's just what it sounds like. It's a portable pack and play crib.
Okay, and let's say a family has suffered a loss through SIDS. Are there any sort of resources or agencies that they can be transferred to try to help them recover from what's got to be a devastating loss?
Yes, there's a lot of resources around. We do try to have the clergy of their choice that meets them with the investigation. And the coroner's office also provides a list of resources to them as well.
And Mr. Charlie, before I let you go, I just want you to reiterate one more time that SIDS is not something that just happens to everybody else or to somebody else. You've seen it, it's real, it's devastating.
It is. The SIDS is, whether it's SIDS or an unsafe sleep environment or say unsafe sleep related deaths, it happens to absolutely everyone. And unfortunately, you know, it's so difficult. Any loss of life is very difficult. But when an infant's involved and you expect them to have a full life ahead of them, it's obviously much more difficult on parents, siblings, everyone else. It's difficult for all of us that have to work that, the first responders, the paramedics, the coroner's office, all of those individuals. But you're right. It's important for everyone to know that it happens. It can happen to absolutely everyone. It's why it's so important for everyone to get that information. And that's one of the big things that we stress as a Safe Sleep Task Force is anyone and everyone of any background, race, religion, no matter what the circumstances are, you need this. If you're going to be in the care of a child, like you said, grandparents, especially you being one, have that information out there and available. This is potentially life-saving information that we want to get in the hands of absolutely everyone.
You know, Mr. Charlie, I'm extremely grateful to you because I've got a 36-year-old and a 31-year-old, and right now I'm helping with an infant. But 30-something years ago, I never told my mother or a babysitter, do not let this child sleep on his tummy. I didn't know that. And of course, we're educated and we know that now. And I'm sorry you had to experience so many losses, which I understand why you're part of the Safe Sleep Task Force. And I want to commend you for that, even though you're no longer with the coroner's office. It's wonderful what you and Michelle do. So, Miss Michelle, let me ask you, does the Safe Sleep Task Force accept donations?
We accept monetary donations and other safe sleep items. We don't typically accept used cribs or anything like that, but safe sleep sacks. We actually have a group that makes sleep sacks for our infants. So one of the risk factors is blankets. So we do not recommend using blankets, but we love these wearable blankets. They're called sleep sacks. And so we do accept donations for that as well.
Okay, because the sleep sack, the infant is contained and the cloth can't constrict their breathing.
Correct.
Okay. What else do we need to know about what you all do, Miss Michelle?
We would love for you all to help us be the voice of safe sleep in our area. So take what you've learned today and pass the word along.
Thank you so much. Mr. Charlie Hunter, please close it out for us. I mean, you had the terrible experience of seeing this over and over again in your career. So what message would you like to leave us with?
I appreciate the opportunity to end it. It's, as many infant deaths as we've had in Southwest Louisiana, which at one point, Southwest Louisiana nationally was on the map as one of the highest rates of infant deaths, especially preventable infant deaths. But Mark, one thing is since the task force has taken off, people like Michelle and everybody else has been on the task force for all these years, spending thousands of hours educating parents and caregivers and hospitals and law enforcement and everyone that we went through during this interview. It is one of the biggest things for all of us to look back on. And I will tell you, since the inception of the program, there has been around a 65% decrease in infant deaths around Southwest Louisiana. And I tell you, that number right there is why everyone keeps fighting. We're going to keep getting that fighting until we get that number to zero, hopefully. But the success of our program, because of our community buying in, people like you that join in and share the word and get that out there to our community, it has significantly reduced infant deaths in our area. And I think that is something we should all be so proud of.
Well, All I can do is commend you and Michelle, Charlie, for what you all are doing. Y'all are saving lives, and and even more, and equally as importantly, y'all are saving families from a lifetime of devastating loss. And of course, I can imagine, the parents of that child are trying, are instrumental in trying to get the word out so that nobody else has to experience what they went through. Say the name of that child again, please, Michelle.
His name is Caden Reed.
Well, thank you, parents of Kate and Reed. I'm very sorry for your loss. If you would like to reach out to the Safe Sleep Task Force, call them 337-508-2286, 508-2286, or email them SWLA Safe Sleep Task Force at gmail.com. And everyone, remember, educate your siblings, your parents, your babysitters, anybody that's going to come in contact with your child. Uh, no blankets, no sleeping with your child, hard sleep service, no stuffed animals, and just make sure, and bouncers, get them out of those bouncers and those car seats when they fall asleep because you don't want to restrict their airflow. Nobody wants to live with the pain that the loss of an infant can cause. So again, thank you so much, Miss Michelle McGinnis and Mr. Charlie Hunter. I'm just humbled by your service, Miss Michelle McGinnis and Mr. Charlie Hunter. Thank you all again.
Thank you for having us.
Take care and keep doing God's work.